Peter Thiel helped create PayPal, funded Facebook, and built a fortune by predicting the future before anyone else could see it. But his most ambitious bet isn't in finance, artificial intelligence, or even space. It's in something far more primal, time itself. For nearly 2 decades, Thiel has quietly poured millions into projects that treat aging not as fate but as a solvable problem. While most billionaires talk about living better, Thiel talks about not dying at all. Behind closed doors and in obscure labs, he's bankrolled researchers exploring cryonics, cellular rejuvenation, gene repair, and young blood transfusions, technologies that sound like science fiction but are inching toward reality. To Thiel, mortality isn't destiny, it's a technical flaw, the most stubborn bug in the human condition. And in his mind, any flaw can be debugged. In this episode, we'll uncover Peter Thiel's war against death, the science he's betting on, the philosophy that drives him, and the storm of ethics surrounding his vision. Because if Silicon Valley really can end aging, humanity's oldest limit might vanish, and we may not be ready for what comes next. Thiel's fascination with immortality runs deep. Long before he became a billionaire investor, he studied philosophy at Stanford, fascinated by questions of meaning, mortality, and progress. He has often said that our culture has become complacent about death, that we accept aging simply because we've stopped imagining alternatives. In his view, surrendering to mortality is not wisdom, it's a lack of imagination. Where others see biology, he sees engineering. If humans built machines to fly, connect continents, and decode genomes, why can't we also design a system to repair ourselves indefinitely? Thiel has called mortality the ultimate unsolved engineering problem. His personal stance is starkly simple: you can accept aging as natural, or you can fight it. He chooses to fight. That defiance, half philosophical and half technological, shapes how he invests and how he thinks about civilization itself. To Thiel, progress has always been about refusing limits, whether those limits are financial systems, governments, or even biology. Thiel has poured millions into the most radical corners of anti-aging research. He's a patron of the Methuselah Foundation, an organization that rewards scientists who manage to extend the healthy lifespan of lab animals, a tangible way to accelerate real results instead of theories. He also supports SENS Research Foundation, led by biogerontologist Aubrey de Grey, whose mission is to repair the damage of aging the way mechanics maintain machines. SENS focuses on 7 categories of cellular damage, from mitochondrial mutations to tissue stiffening, and seeks therapies to reverse them all. Thiel has also funded biotech startups like Ambrosia, which experimented with plasma transfusions from young donors, testing whether youthful blood chemistry could rejuvenate older organisms. Once dismissed as medieval myth, this idea now attracts legitimate scientific curiosity as researchers probe how proteins and hormones influence cell repair. And then there's cryonics, the boldest of all bets. Thiel is a member of the Alcor Life Extension Foundation, a company that preserves bodies, or sometimes just brains, at the moment of death, stored in liquid nitrogen at -196 degrees Celsius. The hope that future medicine might someday revive them. To some, this is delusion. To Thiel, it's insurance. If technology can disrupt banking, communication, and space travel, why should death be exempt? Most research Thiel funds targets the microscopic failures that accumulate with time. Every second, DNA breaks, proteins misfold, mitochondria weaken, and so-called zombie cells, senescent cells that refuse to die, clutter our tissues, secreting toxins that spread inflammation. The body slowly becomes a victim of its own success at surviving. But new therapies aim to reverse these processes. Senolytics are drugs that seek and destroy those zombie cells, clearing biological junk that accelerates disease. Gene editing tools such as CRISPR promise to correct mutations before they manifest as illness. Epigenetic reprogramming attempts to reset a cell's identity, rolling back its biological clock to a youthful state without erasing its function. These ideas once sounded like fantasy, now they're appearing in peer-reviewed journals. For Thiel, the frontier of longevity isn't magic, it's information science applied to biology. If aging is a loss of information within our cells, then by rewriting that code, we might reboot the body. Of all Thiel's ventures, cryonics remains the most controversial and the most cinematic. Imagine a body, perfectly preserved at death, waiting in a stainless steel cylinder for centuries, suspended between life and possibility. At Alcor's facility in Arizona, technicians drain blood, replace it with cryoprotectants, and cool the body until molecular motion nearly stops. The process doesn't freeze a person in ice, it vivifies them, turning tissues into glass-like stability without forming destructive crystals. Thiel doesn't expect to wake up in the 25th century, but he considers the small chance of revival worth the experiment. To him, not trying would mean surrender. Cryonics embodies Silicon Valley's DNA, bold risk, radical optimism, and contempt for limits. Whether revival ever works or not, it symbolizes the same instinct that launched rockets and built the internet, the refusal to accept impossible. Thiel is not alone. Google's founders created Calico, a secretive lab dedicated to understanding lifespan. Jeff Bezos funds Altos Labs, which recruits Nobel laureates to explore cellular rejuvenation. Dozens of startups across California, Zurich, and Singapore chase similar dreams, armed with billions and guided by the idea that death is optional. But Thiel stands apart in tone. He doesn't speak of wellness or mindfulness, he speaks of defeating death itself. To him, this isn't luxury, it's duty. Humanity, he argues, should pursue life extension with the same urgency once reserved for curing disease or exploring space. Still, that ambition raises uncomfortable questions. If immortality becomes achievable, who gets access? Would eternal life belong only to the wealthy? Would population surge, or would birth slow to balance it? Would endless time erode meaning, or magnify it? Philosophers warn that death gives life urgency, without it, purpose might dissolve. Thiel counters that fear of death limits imagination. A civilization freed from mortality, he says, could think in centuries, not quarters, solving problems too vast for mortal timescales. Many scientists respect Thiel's funding yet question his expectations. Reversing aging isn't like debugging code, biology resists shortcuts. Complex systems heal slowly, and some damage may be irreversible. Others fear that Silicon Valley's obsession with immortality diverts resources from immediate global health challenges, pandemics, sanitation, nutrition, problems that kill millions long before aging does. But even skeptics admit one thing: Thiel's money has accelerated progress. Labs that once struggled for grants now publish in top journals. Research once dismissed as pseudoscience has entered mainstream discussion. Even failed experiments yield precious data about how our cells break down and how they might be repaired. Perhaps Thiel's greatest legacy isn't conquering death but forcing science to ask bolder questions. For centuries we asked how to live well. Now, because of investors like him, we dare to ask why we must die at all. Peter Thiel's quest for immortality may sound extreme, but history favors dreamers who refused limits. Flight, space travel, and digital communication once seemed impossible, until visionaries made them inevitable. Whether his investments lead to endless life or simply to healthier, longer decades, Thiel's message is unmistakable: aging is not inevitable. His war against death is, at its core, an act of defiance, a declaration that progress doesn't end at the edge of biology. Maybe immortality will remain out of reach. Maybe the value lies not in winning but in trying, in pushing civilization to imagine a version of life unbounded by decay. So what do you think? Is immortality the next step in evolution, or humanity's greatest mistake? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.